Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Jerick Show. We have got an amazing special show for you today because, back to true form, we even have a surprise special guest. Well, it's not really a surprise if you're a regular viewer, but we're going to go into surprise connection requests on LinkedIn. We'll talk about air gaps, Rambo. We'll talk about when the police get mugged and whether Pokemon Go is a tool for threat intelligence.
Welcome to The Jerick Show, featuring your hosts, Javvad Malik and Eric Krohn. Timely topics, poorly presented.
All right, so we're just going to jump straight into it. The first story we'll be covering fictitious people and how they can get up to no good. Speaking of no good, Eric Krohn, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing good. Coming to you live from our travel trailer out at our property today. Huh? How about that?
Wow. Okay. The life and
Hey,
times of Eric
I've already
Krohn.
been wrestling snakes today and all kinds of fun stuff. It was a good time.
Wow. So interesting. Are any of the snakes poisonous, venomous, around where you are?
Venomous. Yeah. No. Well, there are some around here, but none that I've had to deal with. So
okay, we can live in hope.
Thanks. Appreciate that, man. So we have a special guest today, yeah?
Yeah, let's set the scene first. So back in 2009, some of you may remember there was this personality put up on LinkedIn and some social medias, and it became a big saga. The Robin Sage incident. This was who was fictitious. She befriended lots of high-ranking military officials and people around the world, and potentially, if it was a bad actor, a nation state, a terrorist, they could have really done some damage. Thankfully, it was one of the good people, as far as we know. Disclaimer that was behind it, and we're very pleased to welcome Tom Ryan, the mastermind behind it, to the show. Welcome, Tom.
How's it going?
Great, thanks. Great. Good to have some intelligence on this show today.
Oh, geez. Yeah,
Tom is it intelligence? Because, unfortunately, I'm always introduced as, Tom's most famous for posing as a female on the internet. And then the older people have the AOL flashback of their dream girl really being a big fat dude.
Yeah. We said 2009 on here, Javvad, and it started me thinking, I'm like, was that back in the MySpace days still? Was this
MySpace was still around technically?
Oh, Lord have mercy. That was an interesting time in our lives, one which I don't want to talk about too terribly much, but
we all missed that Tom though.
Yeah, that Tom was kind of cool. I mean, compared to what we're dealing with right now. But yeah, so this Tom was kind enough to join us last week and made the mistake of making some comments on the live feed here, and now we roped him into being on the show this week to try to make ourselves look like we're smart or something like that, right, Javvad? That was the idea, wasn't that what we planned?
Pretty much, yeah. So,
gotcha.
So let's get into the Robin Sage thing. So you created this character, and then you demonstrated how easy it was to fool people, to get them to connect. I believe some people tried to invite her out for dinner. Some people maybe offered her a job or an interview for a job without knowing much about it. What was the thought process behind it? Was it just to show like, hey, we can fool people, or was there something else going on?
So there were a lot of different things going on. So, and also a lot of people took it the wrong way. So when I started connecting to all the whole high profile people, that was basically bait, saying, oh, she is well connected in the industry. And then we may want to connect to her. And the interesting part is people don't watch things go down in real time during that. So there were a few people that did call out it was a fake. Okay. A buddy of mine, O'Galley picked it up. Chris Nickerson picked it up. All of them. But then it's the whole thing. You retaliate when somebody calls you out, and then they back off. And then nobody else picks up on that one retaliation. And the whole premise of it, do you know who you're really connected to? Because this is like the beginning of when everybody starts a whole digital life and they're not doing stuff out there anymore. And then we all end up getting to be the fat cybersecurity experts.
Yeah. So were you just like sitting around drinking a beer and you were like, I have an idea. I know what I'm going to do here.
It started off that way. And then the few people that knew about it in the background, they're like, go connect to this person. We want to see if they connect, and go connect to this one. I'm like, sure. And then see what they say. So after like the first week, you started to feel the pain that women go through on social media, no matter which network. All the stupid things people say in the background. I'm like, interesting. So who would give up what? And this turned into a whole different scenario. And the funniest part is the long game. This ended up being taught in like 28 different universities. You know what the downside was? Not one of them asked me for the slide deck.
Oh, wow.
Interesting.
So they never got to see the whole story behind it. And then when you saw my Black Hat presentation, it was, I will say it was subpar. I'm not going to lie, because it's those standard ones. When you do it, you get that knock on the door saying, I need you to remove these slides. And I need you to remove these slides. And you're like, ugh. So after that, it turned into some fruition stuff. And I'm like, all right. I'm like, now I don't think they'll ever let me talk to Black Hat again.
So what? Who are you at liberty to say now? I mean, are we that far ahead to indicate who or what might have been removed? Who asked for what to be removed?
I'll make it easy on you. Put your OSINT skills together and then do some timeline analysis, and then ping me on LinkedIn if you're right.
That's a great game. Yeah. Okay, I'm sure if Eric can't, one of our viewers can put it together.
That's kind of funny though, that even in Black Hat, they're like, you need to pull some slides, which a lot of people assume Black Hat is what DEF CON is.
No, Black Hat did not tell me to do it. It was not Black Hat.
Oh,
it was a knock on your door from
it was the
people. I'm like, how'd you find out which room I'm in?
But yeah, and how did they see your slides? How did they know you were gonna?
They're like, oh, do you mind if we see them? I'm like, sure.
Okay, gotcha.
Partially my fault, but it led to more interesting things. So, I mean, if I were to go through the whole slide deck, it's 109 slides.
Oh, wow. Wow, that sounds like one of our colleagues. He does slides like that, 1 a second.
No, the reason why it was done that was to explain the whole way we made the persona, why we made the persona. So like kind of the psychology behind it and things like that. And then all the red flags. So for instance, one of them would have been if you actually went and called it out and said, I did a quick background check and the name Robin Sage, there's no young females by that name. It's a bunch of men over 60. Or if you didn't understand the military, well, that's a military training exercise. So is this an exercise? Or this scenario? Ogali picked up by saying, there's no such role over at NetWarcom, which was Navy Cyber Command. And what I did on the fly when he said that, I quickly changed the role and found out what the real roles were.
Oh, nice.
So it's like, do you detect changes in those personas to where this literally ends up in 3 references in the MITRE ATT&CK framework right now? Because the downside of this is now you've created a whole new attack vector that everybody uses.
Right. That makes sense.
So it's interesting you talk about the psychology or the mindset behind it all, because I think that's something that a lot of people kind of forget about. So now, like, the whole big hype is about deep fakes and using AI to create these avatars and everything. But the tool is just the tool. And I suppose it's more about the psychology of how you create that avatar and create it. Do you agree with that? Is that still the case, that even if you're using AI, you need to understand what you're doing with it, how you're positioning it, and how do you any criticisms?
Yeah, and the key thing is, so Tom Brennan and I, buddy of mine, with New York chapter of LWASP, we literally had this saying, a fool with a tool is still a fool.
Gotcha.
All right.
Now, where did you get the image from that you have on here?
It was a softcore porn site called God's Girls.
Wonderful, wonderful. Okay. Very creative, very creative.
Yeah, and then from that you do your OSINT, then you find out they're real other sites like they were Facebook and stuff like that, and you use those other images. And the other problem that nobody saw is somebody easily steals your identity and you don't even know on social media.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That happens so much with just like the romance scams and things like that. Those other types of social engineering attacks like that. And they have no idea that somebody's stolen their picture, doctor, whatever, and it's being used as something else to get some grandmother out somewhere to give up money and whatever else. It's kind of sad the way that it works these days. And the more we leave digital trails and, especially the younger generation, it's out there publicly. Like I try to keep my stuff mostly private. But these young people, they're putting out stuff out there all the time. It's so easy to grab. But now you can make new stuff based on that also with the AI tools, which
you know what the downside is? So nobody saw much of me after, let's say, the Occupy movement, unless I was actually on site somewhere. So I scrubbed most of the social media. Now, and then comes the time when you go start up a business. Then you're kind of forced to reopen it for marketing purposes.
Yeah.
I mean, we can't all be Dave Kennedy and start flashing my new Tesla truck that I'm getting and the wrap I'm getting on.
Dude, that Warthog wrap, you got to admit,
dude, that is phenomenal.
I don't even love the Cybertrucks.
Yeah.
But man, that Warthog wrap, that's going to be something else.
I'm like, man. The only thing he's missing on it is like putting, one of his lovely companies on it and just doing it as a full tax write-off, driving it around.
So Javvad loves it when I bring up my military background because I was active duty Navy and then I worked with the Army for quite a while out of one of the NOSCs. And it was weird for me coming out of that with the lower profile going into when I went to ISC squared. And I was like the director of member relations. So I was supposed to be very public. And it was such a weird change for me. I was so used to OPSEC on everything that it was an odd switch for me. And I still find even these days posting up stuff like on Twitter and all that, my first thought is always, how can this be used? Or should I be putting this out there? But it's kind of a different world in the role we're in and speaking and doing all that kind of stuff. So, but I still find myself falling back to that kind of weird feeling when I put something out there. I don't know. Do you kind of see where that's coming from?
Yeah, I do. And then the podcasts are the one things that ruin it. Because if you look at my social media right now, all of them are AI generated photos of me. The only ones that are real ones are now podcasts.
Gotcha. No.
I mean, and that's the reality. Now you have my voice. Now you can copy me and,
Yeah. Well, you could do a Jack Resider and just start going around with bandanas everywhere and hats and trying to hide out like that.
Yeah.
I'm not worried about that anymore.
Yeah.
It's like they've got everything. I'm waiting to see. Well, the funniest, and when I say they got everything, so the breach was at the 13th. Yeah, 3 days ago. The whole election database.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm like, how timely right after the debate. It was almost done on purpose.
Almost.
It's almost frustrating at this point how much of our identities and stuff are out there. I mean, the digital stuff. So I was Home Depot, Target, OPM. I mean, at a TSSCI, they can tell what color, what size shoes I wear at this point. Like all that information is out there on us. I guess what I worry about is the younger generations, the kids that are kind of growing up, but they're stealing that stuff out through school breaches and stuff as well, and using those identities starting at a very young age and building up credit and all this kind of stuff in those kids' names, and they're like 8 years old and have a credit score. It's kind of crazy what we're dealing with.
You know what the funny part is that most people never realize? So literally the same time the Robin Sage hit the press, I think the first one to publish it was Dark Reading. And after that was is when they busted the illegals in New York. And then when you start doing the, your little OSINT on how they gathered those personas, it's like they did this, this, and this. They started, then what they do is they start getting people's birth certificates and their copies of their birth certificates because they don't really validate them well. Not making fun of LexisNexis here at all. And that's how they build up their whole personas. It basically starts off as an identity theft. And the problem is nowadays, it's like you can't, if someone steals your identity, they can't even tell which one of you is real anymore.
Yeah.
I'm lucky because there's 1,972 of me between New York and New Jersey. So everyone has to get is Tom Ryan a real name.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. We just had an interesting thing. I don't know if you saw it at Know Before, where we ended up hiring a North Korean on accident. And I don't know if you saw that story or not, but it was pretty interesting. This guy applied for a role as an AI developer, went through 4 Zoom interviews. Our CIO, Colin, who's a very sharp guy, talked to him and said he knew his stuff. Like this guy knew what he was talking about. We ended up hiring him, sent a laptop to him, and it ended up going to a mule that took it to a laptop farm. And we spotted it pretty quickly because there was some weird stuff going on with that and shut it down. But it turns out there's like this big market out there for like North Koreans to get hired on to organizations and essentially funnel money back to there. They're even doing work and stuff. But this guy used, and we found it. It was an AI doctored stock photo, and he stole an identity from somebody to get through all the background checks and all that. But it was 4 Zoom calls, background checks. Like they don't mess around where we're at. And this guy made it through all of that. It's kind of eye-opening how easy it is to get around that stuff, given all the information that's floating around out there.
Yeah, because everything's been breached.
Yeah, pretty much.
I mean, the overinflated 3.4 billion people's information. Nobody went and pointed out, well, one, they don't all have social security numbers. Number 2, it's everybody's pattern of addresses. So you have those people that move a lot. You'll see like 10, 15, 20 addresses for that person. No, but what that does is allow you, when you're in the game, it's kind of like a pattern of what goes on. They move. Is it this, that, the other thing? You tie that to an email. I always tell people the 2 most dangerous things you can hand a person is your business card and your resume. You hand me a resume, I will know everything you've ever done in your entire life.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and we put our resumes up on LinkedIn these days.
On LinkedIn, yeah, exactly.
I mean, who prints a resume for the most part these days? It's all copied up on LinkedIn. So there's a ton of information out there.
Did you see what I have posted as my universities?
No, I didn't.
University of Hard Knocks and all of that stuff.
Well,
and the
okay.
problem is you'll have that listed and you go to apply for a job, and it says the algorithm in LinkedIn, it says, okay, you have the qualifications for this job.
See, Javvad, we need to start using our Lord and Reverend titles more often.
We do.
Well, did you buy that 1 square foot block for like $100 so you could be a lord?
Yep.
Hey, we got a BOGO on Black Friday. Well, the idea was we were actually going to put together a talk. We submitted it to RSA, I think, as a matter of fact. And the idea was we were going to do some social experiments to see how people treated us differently if we used different titles, like for trying to change airline flights or stuff like that, based on your title, how they treated you. So I got my ordainment and my lordship. I think, Javvad, you got the ordainment, lordship, and you splurged for the PhD, right?
That's right, yes. So
you're
Reverend,
Dr. Lord Reverend Javvad.
You know what that qualifies you for?
Nothing.
To be the first lady.
Well, it is. I mean, I can legally marry people here in the state of Florida now, so I got that going for me. And when I do apply for things, actually, I've done a couple conferences, and they have the drop down. It's Mr. and Mrs. Doctor, whatever. And there have been a couple that said Lord, and I selected the hell out of that, man. Nobody's ever mentioned that to me, but I've selected the hell out of it. Just if it's in the list, hey, I might as well, right?
I find it's just useful for like spam emails. Like you sign up with a title like that to a conference, and then anything that's addressed to Lord or Doctor or whatever that goes straight in the bin.
Well, do you know what I do to make myself feel special? So I use this alternate email address. You know how you want to read that one PDF, but you hate giving up your information?
Yeah.
So I have a fake persona. I'll throw it out. I don't care. All the marketing people now know. So my email address is dick.hertz, HERTZ, at misdirect.me.
Nice.
Because I enjoy my morning, when I wake up and I see my first email says, "Hello, Dick."
Yeah, I generally just use the dot rule thing with Gmail. Yeah. So
I just feel like here's what we're missing in cybersecurity, like a cybersecurity comedy show. Or the other thing we were talking about this with a couple of guys. We're going to start having cybersecurity roasts. After watching the Tom Brady roast, we need to do that.
Oh yes. Oh my, that would be great.
I can think of some people.
I can think of a lot of people
I'd love to have on there.
The problem is their first target was me.
Yeah. So okay, with this whole Robin Sage thing, what do you think was the most interesting thing you learned from this? Like what really surprised you from this?
So how easy it was to do, and then how many iterations I've done. Everybody thinks there's just that one. When we do the 15th anniversary edition, which will be this year, it'll be number 5.
Oh, okay.
Wow. It just doesn't use
still works.
It's different. So one I had version 3, a few of them picked up on it. Erica Murphy, she was running for 10 years.
Oh man.
Yep. And that's before LLMs with AI to do all the fun stuff.
Yeah, that's crazy.
You have like that persona running for 10 years. Where does Tom end and your persona begin? Like, how do you differentiate? How do you compartmentalize them in your mind?
I don't know, dude. My wife is like, I think you're going to turn into a woman one day. But also to that, because between having a lot of sisters and my wife and all her female friends, you get to understand their personas and how to mix that in, and different types of personalities. Like over here in New York, we have the Upper East Side snobs, and then you get a mix up of everything. So it makes it fun. The problem is that we have now is with AI. Oh, dude, and the thing that triggered me and a couple of our friends is like, we started seeing entire companies spun up full of fakes on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And then they have the same pitch, the same marketing. Let's go do this. And it's like, yeah, these guys don't exist. And then you're finding out their own personas, because one thing I've learned, I'm not going to sit there and say, oh, I got this one, because nobody listens. Nobody listens. I mean, the one thing I'll give them credit for is they started a verification if you work at a company. There's a way around that also. You just go buy a domain name that looks like it, and they can't validate that domain's associated with that company.
Right.
Yeah.
You mentioned, with the AI stuff, and my wife, she's real into gardening and things like that. And one of the things she was talking about at one point was the books and stuff that are being generated and sold on Amazon. So they're like AI generated, and they give really, really bad, almost dangerous information about stuff, about, certain medications or whatever. But this has become a whole industry to just spin stuff up with AI, go out and sell it like it's real.
Well, do you know why? Well,
it's easy and there's money.
No, when you start going so everybody's always looking to make the extra buck. All right. So when you go on Instagram, you go on the forever, oh, we're going to ban TikTok. They have tutorials on how to do this because everybody wants to make extra money. And it'll literally start off where they're literally collecting information. It'll say this keyword, and they're running ManyChat. Everybody forgets ManyChat's home of the Chinese. So you put your information in here, you get this, you get that, and you go buy this book. You generate a book, they make a couple extra bucks. Me, the one I want to do is t-shirts. Screw it. I mean, make so many fun t-shirts.
Oh,
because where it's going with AI is like, how many of you seen these election videos? Some of these are pretty damn good.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
The one that made me laugh the most, I saw yesterday. It was like Trump hooking up with Kamala, and then there's videos of her pregnant and all these other things. I'm like, oh, well, at least you're making me laugh.
Right.
Whichever way you go, you got to laugh at it. It doesn't matter. But but then the ability to do this. So where I'm seeing this happen in real time. All right, tell you the unfortunate side of this, you end up working with a lot of attorneys.
Mm-hmm.
And the deep fakes you see in divorces right now.
For
causes. And then the fake phone calls.
Yeah.
And then from the other companies, like for instance, you go after, say, a family home office. All right. So you got these billionaires that got this office of like 10 to 20 people and whatever they're doing. So maybe one's renting out super yachts. All right. Those go for about $150,000, $250,000 a week. And do you think the finance person is super smart on cybersecurity? Do you think I can clone a voice of another billionaire and call and tell them, well, I'm canceling this trip. Can you move the money back to this account?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, they're out $250,000. This is happening often. And like the old days, you probably remember this one, Eric, the good old Swift attacks.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I don't even think they've fixed that yet, but that's the reality of it. This is where it's like the new way of doing a Swift attack.
Yeah. No, it's definitely going to be, we see the AI, the deep fakes, the fakery, all that stuff. And it is interesting to me, one of the things I talk to people about is with respect to all the AI stuff and the deep fakes and all that, we talk a lot about the human factor and getting targeted and social engineering. But the fact is, what it's really doing is allowing people to do this at a greater scale. I mean, yeah, you can clone somebody's voice and all that, but how many decades have people been calling like, oh, there's all this background noise, I'm at the airport, sorry, I can't talk long, I need you to do this and this. It's the same attacks, only they're able to now do it a bunch more. Like we saw Perry Carpenter, one of our colleagues and a super nice guy. Hey, James.
Good old teams.
Yeah. So Perry was over there at DEF CON this year at the Social Engineering Village. And they did a head-to-head with, it was AI versus human vishing. So it was live vishing, in the booth. They get up there and do that. And Perry and them did very, very well. Oh, awesome. We lost Javvad. Perry and them did very, very well with it. I think they won, but the score came back. They said the humans won. However, one of the things they really pointed out was they were actually monitoring heart rates and stuff, and how relaxed Perry and Lisa, his partner, were just hanging out in there, because all they did is hit go, right? And then this chat bot that was actually tied to ChatGPT on the back end for looking up stuff, and then it was using 11 Labs, I think, for the voice back to them. And I mean, it was really cool. And they just sat back and let this thing do its thing. And they could have done that to 100 different people at one time, as opposed to the vishers picking up the phone and calling one person at a time. So the scalability and the scope that it's going to allow this to grow to me, is what really makes a lot of this technology dangerous in my mind. And I think we're going to see the most problem with.
Well,
do you agree with that? Or
yeah, so being on the AppSec side forever, the first thing I'm waiting for DoD to announce AI as a cyber weapon. So I'll give you the perfect example. In the DoD context, technically tools like Web Inspect and OWASP Zap are literally listed as a cyber weapon.
Right.
all right, because of the potential to do harm. AI is just, it's a tool, but it depends on the context of the person with it. It's just like a firearm. It could be safe or it could be not, but it's all the person that's running the show. And so the new Robin Sage one I'm doing is not going to be me. I have a team of 12 for this. 2 of them are attorneys, so I don't get myself jammed up.
There you go. Yeah.
All right, because it's going to be edgy. It's definitely going to be edgy. That's all I'm going to say.
Okay. So,
and then
this time you're getting
nobody can say anything because the team is down the middle. It's like you got people that lean left, lean right. Doesn't matter. This is all research purposes. So you can't say I'm the next one running Palantir to influence all these people. It's not going to happen. Personally, I don't care. The target rich people are just going to be random shockers.
I'm looking forward to seeing what happens with this. Now, any idea roughly when this is going to be unveiled? What's going on with this?
After the elections, because I don't want to be accused of manipulating the elections, because all of a sudden I will be Russia. And it started off Iran was going to manipulate it, then China, now it's Russia. It's like, man, attribution is not people's skill.
Yeah. Okay. So post-election, all right.
And it's not going to be a 28-day thing this time. It's going to be 3 to 6 months.
Okay. This will be interesting. I'm looking forward to it. We're going to have to keep our eyes on
this will be the next wake-up call, because what happened with the original one, it forced DOD to create a social media policy.
And have you seen, so let's say if today you were to start again, do you think you'd be as successful, or do you think the policies and procedures that have been put in place with military specifically would prevent you from being successful? Sorry, I'm trying to keep it professional.
Eric will probably pick up on this one. I'm going to put my Grant Cardone hat on. I'm going to 10x this.
Yeah, this will be interesting. Okay. All right. So we've had fun.
One other difference, though, is I've literally gathered a bunch of CISOs as advisors to say, give me use cases you need to see for your type of organization. And we will hit that one.
Okay.
A couple of people come back and say, well, what can you do to capture, human traffickers if you were to do that? Another one's come back, well, how do I show how vulnerable and exploitable a sea level is? Because they never believe it.
Oh, yeah. We've seen that. Yeah.
Because their kids fight for it. And that's why I'm doing a talk similar to this at an executive protection conference in Nashville in December.
Okay.
It's basically to have them understand their OPSEC. Because if I'm going after an executive, whom am I going to follow? The protection team.
Yep.
Right.
Reminders, yeah.
Because they're always there on their phone.
Yeah. I was thinking executive assistant because, but hey.
It's the oldest one in the book, dude.
It is. But they still have access to everything. And yeah,
I'm probably going to get called sexist for this one, but the easiest one for an executive assistant is send them a phishing email that looks like the real and it's a Louis Vuitton bag.
Gotcha.
We've got this for you for $400, and click here to claim your discount.
It still amazes me what people will click on for stuff like that. But all right, we should probably move on, Javvad. This has been fantastic. We just don't generally go very long here.
Yep.
You may notice, Tom, up in the corner where it says we have 0 viewers, but that's a bald-faced lie. I just want to point that out to you. We do actually have people to watch this. We just can't see how many. I think what happens is James negates most of them when he comes on here, and it just kind of knocks it down to nothing. But we generally tend to go through these pretty quickly. We love you, James. Sorry. He's in Ireland right now or something like that?
Yeah. He's in Ireland, so all the leprechauns are his height now, so he feels like an average-sized human now.
Oh, Yeah, because Javad is the tallest. If you ever meet him, Tom, you'll know what I'm talking about.
I
They have
am
this thing.
officially taller than James. That's all I need to know.
Yeah,
Wow.
they love to roll around and say Shire strong and things like this. It's their hobby.
In the words of the philosopher Dominic Toretto, it doesn't matter whether it's an inch or a mile. Winning is winning. So, like, I'm taller than him, whether it's by a millimeter.
Well, I'm telling you, my rooms this weekend this last week in Cleveland at the hotel. I don't know what was up with these door handles, but I literally had to lean over to push the door handle down to open it. And I thought of you and James right off the bat when I saw that. I was like, yeah, it was the strangest thing. Like, all the doors inside the room were normal height, but to actually get in the door to the room, it was down like, just above my knee. It was the weirdest thing, man. But I thought of you guys right up front. So
Don't worry. Now you're making me think of what happened last year. So the wife and I went and got our picture taken with Brad Williams, the comedian, and I got down on my knee and I was still taller than him. Yeah,
he's hilarious, man. That dude busts me up.
is.
Brad Williams busts me up.
He is amazing.
Yeah. He's got some great lines. He's actually, like, when I'm on Facebook now, all the video reels that I have keep popping him up all over because I just can't help but to watch him. He's hilarious. But
he's the little man Dave Chappelle.
Yes,
yeah,
he is. That's a very good description. Yeah.
All right, Javad, let's move on to some stories here. Tom, feel free to give us some feedback on this. What you may notice about these stories is we really have no idea what's going on and have barely read these before getting on here. So it'll be interesting to see how this goes.
It will be.
Yeah, this was one of my picks here. Yeah,
major sales and ops overhaul leads to much more activity for Meow ransomware gang.
Meow. Eric. It makes me think right away of what is Super Troopers, right? How many times can you say meow here or there? Meow. So Meow ransomware gang. They're a spinoff, I believe, of Conti when that all got leaked. They showed up on Checkpoint's August report. The ransomware report is number 2 after Ransom Hub. So they've been, like, really accelerating these last couple months. One of the interesting things about this is they've kind of gone the Clop route where they're not even bothering with the encryption routines. So this is just data exfiltration and sales that they're doing. And a lot of times they're not even going, as I understand it, back to the organization and trying to extort them. So I don't know how long this is going to be continued to be called a ransomware gang if they're simply selling it on the dark web. But they're using the same kind of tactics and basically just stealing all the data here. I think it's pretty interesting that this has caused them to jump up. The thing is, the pricing on this, it's wondering if this is going to be actually worth them continuing to do. Because what was it? Sophos said 2023, the average ransom payment was about $1.5 million. But they've been selling cheap. Oh, yeah, there you go. As low as 150, as high as 40K. They're going to have to try to make up with volume on this is the only way I can see that kind of happening.
Well, you're assuming that they live in Florida and they have expenses as high as you. Maybe they live in Bangladesh where, like, 150 can feed a family of 8 for 3 months easily. Not being racist, I'm just saying, like, the dollar goes further in some other parts of the world. Maybe they're just
absolutely. Isn't that what John McAfee was doing? Right, living in cheap places.
Well, what makes them a Conti offshoot? Because when the Conti leaks happened, we were literally translating. So we had a fluent Russian guy helping translate all of that stuff. And the funniest part of it is that everybody forgot that. And who were most of the people in Conti? Ukrainian.
Yeah.
And then that literally broke apart right as the war started. So what is giving them confidence that this is a new group? Because guess what? You could take all that old data now with AI and you can make it look like anybody you want because it does a phenomenal job on translation. Like if you were to go in OpenAI, we've got it down to doing it to, you can literally pick a specific dialect. So if I said, convert this to Italian with a Sicilian dialect, it does a phenomenal job. It does the same with Russian.
Yep. I've been talking about that a lot. Again, back to the scalability where an English only speaker, for example, can now do attacks in German and Bavarian German and like all of the different dialects, the regionalization. It's extremely good at that. Now, as I understand it here, with this group, it was mostly from the code that they got that makes them one of these 4 offshoots or something like that from Conti. Who knows? I mean, there's as far as I can tell, in the things that I've looked at, there's a whole lot of cross-pollination between some of these groups as well. Like it's incestuous a little bit in some cases. I do love the name, and I think it'll be fun to watch just for that. But this change over to just stealing data, I think, is going to be one to be interested in.
It could be just for a disruptor too.
True.
You know, you start dumping data, and then you start seeing what people do with it. Just like the big 3.4 billion person database of everybody's social, that was out in the open. So no, what was the purpose of it? I mean, you can literally make up 20 different use cases for it.
Yeah, this will be interesting. So, anyways, Javvad, we've spent more time on this story than we've spent on some of our entire podcasts in the past.
I know. It's scary what happens when, like, you know, you have someone that actually asks the tough questions. You know, Tom's doing his best. Like, I'm just asking the questions here, man. I'm just asking the questions, and it's funny to see you
above your height level. That's why. It's over your head.
Can't go over my head. My reflexes are too fast.
Yes.
One thing I learned in the Navy, it's those little guys you got to watch out for, because in a fight, those guys can move lightning quick.
Yeah. So here's another one that I kind of thought was interesting here. This goes back to the old days, years ago, where they were talking about being able to pull data from CRT emissions. And now they're saying they're able to do this from LCD screen noise. These always kind of bust me up. And there's another one here too that we can jump into quickly if you want to, Javvad. And that is doing the same from electrical emissions from RAM. And like the bubble shows here, of course, these are, I'm sure, done in air-gapped computers. These are going to be done in a very sterile environment. So you wonder what the real-life use cases of this kind of stuff would be. But it's kind of like coming back full circle from the old CRT. We can redraw a CRT screen over here from there. Do you ever see something like this, or do you think this will ever be something that's a real threat vector for people?
Well, for this one, it's like you have to be at a maximum distance of 2 meters, which I suppose in
6 whole feet away.
Yeah. It's like one Ford Bronco away, or whatever unit of measurement you use. I don't know. Whatever you Americans, you never
anything but metric.
Yeah,
anything but metric in the US, right? That's like 4 chickens.
But I'm thinking it's basically saying you have to be close enough to see the screen in order to exfiltrate data from the screen. I don't know. I think it's all nice as a academic exercise.
Comp set,
today.
So the real test, here's the real test, because I was testing this out with cameras.
Uh-huh.
So I would take one of my spotting scopes and mount the phone to it to take pictures. I was getting pictures of friends in their office 2 miles away. So could you use the same method? You know, and I was wondering, could I take a laser mic, put it through a spotting scope, and expand the length of it? Could we do the same with this?
Yeah, I don't know if you'd end up getting the same electrical emissions from that, which is what I think these are based off of. I mean, if some of the charts here, it's looking like it's emissions from just like it was with the CRTs, but they showed that they could do it through a wall with the CRTs. So in other words, this could be on the other side of a wall. If you're within 6 feet of it, maybe you can, whatever. It's kind of like having 3 feet between things on Zipper. Ha ha ha.
So that's an interesting thing. If you put your spy hat on, and we're all a black hat, we could do it through people's hotel walls.
Yeah.
So when they're raiding this room, they don't realize there are criminals really in the next room.
Yeah. In the next room. Yeah. be interesting to see how this goes, but it is food for thought with this kind of stuff.
It's
And
interesting.
yeah, you got to wonder.
HDMI like 2 weeks ago too.
Yeah,
And a way of doing it through HDMI.
Yeah.
I remember seeing something about that. Yeah,
We spoke about that, I think, on the show.
Yeah, we might have mentioned that. Yeah, but we do such deep dives, Javvad.
Yeah, I know. The next story I thought was hilarious. That's why I added it. So in London, someone got their purse stolen. She so happened to be the minister for police, and it happened at a police conference. So I think that
And that hair looks like she's out of Harry Potter.
that's right.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, Hermione.
But
Yeah,
I thought it's kind of like one of those. It's so audacious, no one would dare do it, but that's exactly why it would work. And it's also that kind of, I suppose, that false sense of security sometimes people have around their environments and what have you. Like, oh, I'm at a police conference, nothing can go wrong here. Where it's probably like the best.
So was it stolen from her room? I see they had an arrest there, 56-year-old guy.
Oh, forget about the
for
details.
burglary
Come
or
on.
whatever.
Come on,
man.
roll with the sensational view that she was at the conference and someone lifted it potentially from the back of her seat.
Well, my first thought was, who does she report that to? like you're at a cop conference, do you just yell it out to everybody? Or if you're the top cop too,
Yeah.
like who's responsible for that, really?
Yeah.
No, there's some irony to that, definitely. It's sometime between 11 and 13:15.
Yeah.
It's giving me flashbacks of when I worked with Home Office and PSNI in 2013, so you can figure out what that was for. The last G8 summit.
You know, there's a lot. I like this. You like give us enough breadcrumbs to get us interested, but not tell us a story. But then it's like, follow this map, young Padawan, and you will get the answers you seek.
Oh man. Okay. All right.
And
so, I
So,
always knew.
Tom-
I always wondered about this.
Was Pokemon Go an intelligence tool? Okay, or more likely, look, more accurately framed, could someone like yourself create a tool which could be used for intelligence but masquerades as a game, bit like Robin Sage the game?
No, you would literally put malware in an iRobot for everybody that has it as their vacuums because it has a camera on it.
Yeah,
I like the way you think.
Well, you know, there was a recent story that I thought of when I first saw this from you. I want to say I even saw it today or yesterday, where they're talking about DJI and the whole drone issues and the fact that being used for surveillance and reconnaissance, because the video and stuff is uploaded to the DJI cloud, which is a Chinese sort of thing, and blah, 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 blah. Of course, that's one of the reasons why they're pushing back so much in the government side of things. But it is an interesting thing. Can you imagine, with the popularity of like DJI drones, if they were to actually catalog all that information, because it is tagged with GPS and all that, what better surveillance could they have of our country or other countries than to have some schmuck out on the corner doing what they're doing normally every day, unsuspectingly piling up all this information over there? What do you think? Is that real? Could it happen, do you think?
Yeah, I think we saw it happen with the Strava breach that happened a few years ago, where like people were like, where they're going out for a run or outside the military base, and like it's like they're running in a line and then they disappear and then they reappear on the other side or something.
Yeah, and the DJI stuff, I know some of them have rewritten the firmwares when they use them for certain agencies.
Yeah,
you know, to do other things. Now, what could be worse? So I'll give you a hypothetical. So imagine these lovely border crossings we had. Now imagine 2.2 million of them came up through the Darien Straits and had their little back doors up here. And now they're all Uber drivers with cameras in their car.
Oh yeah, that's a good point.
Look at his eyes. His eyes popped out.
You know, a number of years ago, what was this? This had to be about 5 years ago, I think. I was in DC, And I did some briefings for some of the House subcommittees there.
Mm-hmm.
And while we were down there, it was one of the briefings down there, and we were outside one of the skiffs. And I'll never forget, one of the congressmen came storming out of there, and he was just yelling and carrying on about, do you remember the big debacle with like ZTE phones and stuff?
Yep.
Why the hell are we allowing these things around here? As he goes storming down the hallway out of the skiff. I was like, well, I wonder what that one is about. And he asked me, what do you think about that? And I was like, he didn't want an answer, but man, he was hot about that. But this is the same sort of thing. I mean, if you were able to do malware in a bunch of phones like that you're able to put, look at the location services, cameras, microphones, all that stuff that could absolutely be used for surveillance. I mean, we see that being done through some of the trickier malware like Pegasus, right? The Israeli stuff that was out there. And we end up with so much stuff around our devices and things these days that we pay no attention to them. Alexas, all that kind of stuff too could be used for it. My wife, she doesn't even want Alexas like in our downstairs, so I keep them upstairs. Javvad finally got smart and changed his keywords, I think, on your Alexa, right? So it doesn't turn off the lights anymore.
Yes, thank you.
But we're surrounded by this stuff these days.
So yeah, and it's called Instagram, and having your mic attacked so you can do your recordings. Mm-hmm. So we did a test by this at the pool. I think it was on Labor Day. So I'm not going to say who it was. We were talking about swapping and upside down pineapples. And and what does my Instagram feed all of a sudden start showing?
Yeah.
So it's
is that and your wife bought that story?
No, my wife. It was not my wife. Because my wife and I will go around Costco and put upside down pineapples in people's carts to see how many people stare at them.
Oh God!
You
oh Lord!
I live in Florida. Eric it's probably the worst place, like Florida, Georgia. Oh my goodness,
dude! The Villages. Have you heard of the Villages? That happens to be where James's parents live. I'm just throwing that out there, but there's a whole color code with different color loofahs that they put on their golf carts depending on what they're into, and it is the #1 place in Florida for the sales of antibiotics for STDs. I kid you not. It's big giant retirement community.
Wow.
Wax flying everywhere. It's
honestly, this is something I do not need in my head right now, like old Florida people with colored loofahs.
Dude, it's a whole thing, man. You can Google it.
So
I'm not Googling anything, Eric. In fact, I'm getting you off stage right now. This is just like terrible.
These are next year's stickers for Black Hat and DEF CON. Pineapples and loofahs.
I think everyone's getting to that age now anyway, that, we're not too far off. Anyway, on that cheery note, thank you so much, Tom, for being on our show. It was an immense pleasure to speak to you and hear your thoughts and wisdoms and insights, and for all the breadcrumbs, and for those playing at home, I'm sure you'll have a good time trying to figure out, join the dots. And if you do find them, comment or send us an email.
Well, you want another breadcrumb before I go?
Oh, go on then.
All right, go on YouTube and look up Barrett Brown raid video.
Sorry, who? Barrett
Brown.
Oh, Barrett Brown.
Don't post it on the show. I'm just saying, look at it.
Barrett Brown raid.
Like a police raid.
Raid. I thought it was rave, like as in a disco. Okay. But Barrett Brown busted 12 years ago. That one?
Yep.
Okay, cool. I shall check it out. I won't do a live. I won't do a live.
Your challenge is to figure out who the informant in the room is.
Okay.
And it's not me.
I shall follow that up, and I will drop you in line on who I think it is.
All right.
Okay. Thanks, Tom. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. And I suppose thanks, Eric, for being the third wheel.
He went to go flip his pineapple.
He did.